Hello, everyone. I'm just going to do a quick sanitation training. And these are really basics from my food handler's experience and time as a chef. These are kind of what we would say in the restaurant industry are just our toolkit for basic sanitation. And in the era of COVID, what has always been a food handler's toolkit for sanitation and safety has now become really important for the general public. So I'm sure most of you will be well aware of all of the steps that I'll go over today, but maybe towards the end, if you have questions, we'll have time for questions then. Again, I am just a chef, and this is just an introduction to how you can better keep a safe sanitized, as we might be inviting small groups to gather in our backyard or consider having small group meetings in spaces that have common use areas. All right, so the first principles we would already know, hopefully, from all of the guidance from the CDC and EPA. We should have small groups. We should be in areas that have open air or good ventilation. So if possible, try to meet in the outdoors. If you're meeting indoors, try to have windows open or really a good ventilation system in the space. We should be social distancing and wearing masks. And further from that, the next most important thing would be proper hand washing, limiting touching our face and even our hair. So I'm going to go over proper hand washing. But first, I'll start with when we should wash our hands. If you think about it, we all have bad habits. It might be scratching an eye, adjusting glasses, fingers through the hair, a nose itch, or just, if we're nervous, touching around our faces. Anytime we're in this area, the potential for contamination and pathogens or germs to be on our hands after that contact is really high. So any of those touches require a hand wash. The beginning of my school year, we start there with students. We spend about 2 weeks washing our hands. And that's about all we get through because of how often they are touching them, their faces, their hair. So it might be good for you to just consider in your daily life how often those little habits occur, and think about if you're going to be around others, how you can really think of limiting them. So when we need to wash our hands, we're first going to think of using water that is as hot as we can comfortably stand it. I don't want to scald anybody, but we should be using water that's reasonably hot. And we're always going to wash our hands for 20 seconds. We're going to go our fingertips up our wrists. We might even go a little bit closer to the elbow. I'll demonstrate that at the sink. So we have hand soap here. Make sure you get a really good lather on your hand. Notice that I'm going between my fingers, paying special attention to thumbs. They sometimes get overlooked. And then I'll be going up my wrist. And I always come back to my fingers and thumbs. So we want to be washing, scrubbing for 20 seconds. And that's really with coronavirus, the best guidance because it helps break apart the virus particles. So we're really eliminating a lot of that risk just by properly washing our hands with hot soapy water. I'll rinse it off. And this is the really important step that a lot of people don't know or oftentimes forget. I'm going to take my paper towel. I will dry my hands. And then I'm going to turn it off. Okay, so we always want to turn off the sink with a paper towel. We don't want to touch the faucet handle where there are potential pathogens or germs from the last person that was washing their hands. If I go to throw it away, I'm gonna make sure I open a door or a cabinet or anything, dispose of it. I don't wanna touch that area because I'm not sure if it's sanitized. So if I was leaving a bathroom, I would push the door open with that paper towel and dispose of it. I would avoid touching the handles or touching any light switches with my clean hands, right? So again, that's probably common knowledge, but for some of us, it's just good to really think about those steps that we don't take it for granted, okay? So once we've properly washed our hands, we're gonna talk about the difference between clean and sanitized. I thought I'd have my nephew here as my assistant, but he's busy with his father this afternoon. But Daniel and I like to do little games, and a lot of times we put his fake poop on a table. And I'll say, and wash it off, does that look clean? And he'll say, yeah. And I'll say, would you want to eat off it? And he'll say, no. That demonstrates the difference between a surface looking clean, but that it isn't actually sanitized. If we think of a textbook definition, clean means removing dirt. Sanitizing means we have removed or reduced the number of pathogens. We might think of pathogens as germs. We reduce the numbers of pathogens on a surface. So if we're going to clean, we would first have warm or hot soapy water. So I'm going to scrub the surface first with my hot soapy water. This would be removing any dirt, okay? It's not enough for me to just walk away from this surface at this point, especially when we're thinking of COVID protocol for using common use spaces. It might look good and clean, but I haven't taken the next step to reduce the number of pathogens that might still be living on the surface. To do that, I have some options. You can all look at the EPA list, that's my dog, of approved sanitizers. Ones that you might commonly find in your home would be a bleach water solution, disinfecting wipes, some type of spray with bleach, alcohol wipes, and some type of disinfectant. I'm going to go over how we would use these and what concentration levels would be appropriate for each cleaner. Okay, and then I'll demonstrate how we would sanitize the area. So we're going to start over here with disinfectant wipes. We always want to make sure that any disinfectant wipe that we're using or a hand sanitizer is about 70% or higher in its alcohol concentration. So hopefully you can see that. Okay. If we don't see it clearly marked on the label, we want to read the back for the instructions. We could also look if we have a bleach cleaner. If you're wondering what the concentration would be, we can always read the label, and that was what I always encourage students or people at home to do. And this inside cleaner, you can find this at Menards. This is also a disinfectant. It gives you everything that's on it, the concentration levels, and again, the EPA has deemed this to be effective for reducing the numbers of pathogens. All right. Last but not least is what we would probably all be able to easily use and is most commonly found in our house, and that's going to be a bleach water solution. All right. So our bleach water, the concentration matters. What I usually do at home, this is 1 quart of room temperature water with 4 teaspoons of bleach in it. I'm checking my numbers because I always say it backwards. Yes, 4 teaspoons per 1 quart of bleach. For a larger batch, you could do a 1/3 cup of bleach for a gallon of room temperature water. You want to make sure that you're using a room temperature or cool water. Hot water with bleach can actually limit the effectiveness of the bleach solution. So you don't want to do hot water with your bleach, okay? You'll notice with both my hot soapy water and my bleach water solution, I leave my towels submerged. If your towel is out of that cleaning solution, it's in the open air, whatever germs or pathogens might be on it are then growing in that environment. If it's submerged in the cleaning liquid, the pathogen levels should remain low and safe. So always keep it in your liquid. A bleach water solution will be effective for up to 24 hours. Our best practices in restaurants, I have my cooks change out their bleach water solution every 4 hours. If you are going to be having meetings in a communal space, you might even want to go to Menards. They have colored buckets, green for detergent mixtures, red for sanitizer mixture. It's a great way for everybody to have that kind of visual on which is which. So I've cleaned with soapy water. I will then come back. I'm going to bring out my bleach water solution and go over that same area with bleach water. I'm then going to put it back and make sure my towel is submerged. When I'm cleaning, I could be wearing gloves, disposable gloves that once I'm finished cleaning, I will then dispose of and wash my hands, right? You might notice that I'm allowing this to air dry. With any of these cleaners, we want them to air dry. We don't want to come back with a towel and wipe it down, even if we hate water streaks, like my mother. She would hate to see this table left without drying it. But we want to give the time for the cleaner, in this case, the bleach water, to really do its work. All right, so we don't want to dry it off, just let it air dry. All of these cleaners, especially one like this, will give you, in the instructions on the back, a time limit that is required for the maximum effectiveness. In this case, 8 minutes is required, allowing it to air dry. All right, I love to use something like this. For instance, if the youth group come over, what I do, and I'll demonstrate on a chair here, is surfaces that might have common touch for hands. I'm gonna spray down with something like this where I can leave it and let it dry. I didn't have to touch anything, but I'm sure that if I let it sit long enough, it's gonna do a really good job of reducing the number of pathogens. So when we think of disinfecting chairs or common touch surfaces, right? Our countertops, chairs, our faucet and handles, these might be appropriate, but we can always use our bleach water solution with a towel. So when you think of the chair, right, I'm not as concerned where the rear ends go. I will spray that, but I'm most concerned with these areas where a hand might go. All right, as we've already discussed, our hands are really the things that are touching our face and transporting bacteria around. Even if we have a mask on, our mouths and our hands are going to be some of the ways that we transport some of these pathogens to others. So I want to first just focus on areas where hands would touch. I can then come down and spray the rest of the chair. If I'm going to use my sanitizing wipes or a bleach water solution with a towel, I would, again, pay close attention to the areas where a hand might touch. And I'm just going to let this air dry. Okay, I will not come back and wipe it. Again, I would be wearing gloves most normally if I was going to sanitize a whole space once we were done using it, finished using it. I would take those off and then I would wash my hands. All right. Same would be true if I'm going to sanitize the bathrooms after my group has gathered and used them. I'm going to make sure that I'm sanitizing the faucets, the handles, or any areas that might be a high touch region. Okay, I'll go over a few of those high touch regions for you. I'm going to read off my list. Again, the EPA has done a great job of making videos and quick links where you can find these tools. And I think Jesse might share some, or I can share them afterwards. So our high touch surfaces are going to be toilets, including the handles, tables, chairs, countertops, light switches, doorknobs or push pads on a door, cabinet handles, electronics, desks, faucets and sinks. And then this one I want to focus on a little more is our phone. So your cell phone, if you think about it, you probably have it with you at all times. Okay, it's not just teenagers anymore, it is all of us. We have our phones with us. We might even be taking them into the bathroom. I know at school that's a problem. The kids spend 20 minutes in the bathroom because they're texting on the toilet. Hopefully we adults aren't doing it. But I think it's a great practice just throughout your day, maybe every couple hours or every 4 hours, to take your sanitizing wipes and wipe down that cell phone, right? If you've been around people, you've shown your phone to them, you're showing pictures, right? The number of pathogens that this phone is holding on to can be really high, all right? So that's a lot. We want to just make it a common practice to sanitize our phone. You don't need to douse it. A wipe with the appropriate 70% of alcohol or higher concentration will do a good job. Take some fingerprints off your screen and reduce the number of pathogens that these little guys are holding on to. All right, so before we enter that communal setting, we would want to sanitize our phone, and we would want to do it afterwards for sure. All right. Check. All right, so once we have properly sanitized our space, if we're ready to leave, I always make a checklist based on the areas that will be used for my group. For instance, if the youth are gathering in my backyard, I know that not all of them will bring chairs. I make sure before and after that the chairs are getting sanitized properly. Door handles, light switches, toilets, toilet handles, faucets, faucet handles. Again, for me, I find that it's really easy to take one of these longer contact time disinfectants and give everything a really good spray. I can just walk away from it, let it dry. And then if I need to, I can come back later, even for another go with a bleach water solution. But if you put the time into planning out your meeting in advance, thinking of those common use areas, making sure you have the tools you need to sanitize on hand, it makes it a lot stressful for everyone. A big part of this is planning cleaning time into your event, right? If you have a space for only a certain period of time, know that you should spend at least 15 to 20 minutes, if it's a smaller group, for that cleaning time. I would also encourage you to have 1 or 2 people do the cleaning. Don't invite everyone to do it, because then that's more training that you need to provide to the group, and it might have some inconsistencies in how others clean. So if you have 1 or 2 people doing it, they're probably going to do it the same way all the time, and it ensures that consistency in sanitation. Okay, so those are my safety sanitation basics. It's not rocket science. It's really just a lot of put into practice thoughtfulness. So if there are any questions at this point, I would be happy to take them.
I have a question.
Sure.
You talked about chairs, like the upholstered couches, etc., in the gathering room. Is that something we should be using?
So I would say that at this juncture, if you have an option to use something like an upholstered chair, you don't have to feel too scared about it. I know that like you can't use all, like we wouldn't want to put bleach water on it. But one of these spray disinfectants would work really well. This one actually smells really nice and is readily available at Menards. So I think this is a good option for upholstered fabrics. I don't want to speak out of turn, but in the reading I have done, a lot of it says that cloth fabrics tend to absorb moisture from the virus and dry it out. That doesn't mean that you forego sanitizing those spaces where you're sitting, but it does mean the virus might not live as long on that upholstered fabric as it would on a surface that is a hard metal or a hard plastic, okay? But you would still, again, if you can't use a bleach water solution, I think one of these, a spray, would be a really good option. Just make sure that you're using it and trying to, you know, either work left to right or think of a pattern so that you don't miss spots on the fabric. Or your sanitizing wipes might be a good option there. Does that answer your question, Janet?
Yes, thanks.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Okay, I have another one then.
Okay, sure.
For instance, I mean, I don't see us doing this right away, but if we would have I'm just basing on UMW. If we would have a UMW unit meeting in the fellowship hall, we usually sit on folding chairs. Mm-hmm. And then we usually fold them up and put them away so that they're not in the way. So what I'm hearing you say is, then if we have a meeting like that, there needs to be allowed time to let those chairs stay there once we spray them.
That would be correct. And I would think of it like a shopping cart. You might have other people help you stack the chairs without the chairs being sanitized, right? Just like we all push our carts into one space. But then there's a designated person, one person that's going to be responsible for sanitizing those chairs or carts once they've been put where we would like them to be. So at that stage, that person might come. You could have a spray bottle of bleach water solution and a rag or any of these options, but you would just want to be mindful that you're wiping all of them down and leaning them back on the other one. So I do recommend that even if other people help store equipment that has been commonly used, you have one person or two at most being responsible for the actual sanitizing of those items.
Would that person be wearing gloves?
That person would be wearing gloves. So I wasn't wearing my gloves right now, but that person would need to be wearing gloves. Now, mind you, gloves are only as safe as the person wearing them is, you know, changing them. A great representation for this with my students is when we handle chicken, right? If I've been handling chicken, I'm potentially contaminating my hands with like a salmonella bacteria. If I have gloves on, right, the gloves will still have the salmonella. The gloves could have COVID on them. After you've cleaned the chairs, after we've cut chicken, we would want to remove our gloves, throw them in a waste receptacle. I always wash my hands, so I have clean hands before I put on clean gloves and move to another task, right? If you have waste receptacles, we would also really probably prefer that they're ones that open with a foot push, or it's an open trash bin, avoiding those closed tops where your hand is touching that potentially contaminated surface.
Back to the chairs, it sounds to me like they should be sanitized before they are folded and stacked up against each other, because if they're stacked up against each other, it seems like you would be missing some of the areas if you sprayed them.
Right.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, you could ask your group, Janet, you know, keep an eye on people, but you could say, could everybody wipe their chair down with a sanitizer wipe before they go and stack it against the wall? I'm a cautious person, and I guess I'm distrustful in my nature. So I would always ask them to do that, but then I'd err on the side of caution. And with gloves on, I would probably go back with my spray or my sanitizing wipes and just give those chairs a good once over and then let them sit there and air dry. It doesn't take that long. So, you know, you might want to start with wiping with the bleach water or wiping with the disinfectant, stack everything, and then spray it again with one of the disinfectants that has a longer time of drying. So you can walk away from it and let it do its work after you leave. Does that kind of help out?
Sure.
It's like double layer of protection, I think.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. And, you know, when I was helping out at the Aurora Food Pantry, we were using shopping carts all the time. That's how I'd move stuff around. That's kind of how they approached it. They said, you know, here's the station, sanitize your cart. And then we would sanitize it and push it back. But they had another person who is designated to also come behind, and they had a spray that they would do on all of the carts, just as an added layer of cleaning. So
is it necessary to spray the whole cart or only parts of the cart that's been in contact with the
So we really just want to focus on those high touch surfaces. Now, if you have a spray, you can be generous with it. So you're doing more of the disinfecting. But when we really think of the way it's transported, I'll demonstrate on this chair. A chair with arms, I'm most likely going to sit down like this. My hands will be here. I might occasionally come here. But where my hands are is really where I want to be sanitizing the most. So again, a checklist that you compile ahead of time to be thoughtful about what will people most likely touch is going to help you determine where you should focus your energies for sanitation. All right. And as always, if you have a lag time between your meetings, that's going to be better, right? The longer that something has to sit or air out, the virus is going to dissipate or weaken or die. So really, if you have a 24-hour window between meetings, that's great. If you don't, that's when you really, really need to think through, where are people going to be touching and what should I be focusing on?
You talk about sanitizing cloth chairs. Can they use the same spray on the carpet? Will that affect the carpet in a different way than it would be on the cloth chair?
Well, I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't know for sure. But this one specifically does say that it's safe to use on fabrics. So I would assume that you could use it on carpet. Okay. What I wouldn't want to speak to is if you were going to clean a large carpeted surface and you maybe put this in a carpet cleaner, you would have to read more thoroughly or research that type of cleaner used in a large space, or if you were going to kind of water it down in any way to use it. But I think for general cleaning, this would be a good go-to. And like I said, it smells good. So it's not going to be overpowering. You always, too, again, look at the EPA, make sure everything is approved. The list can be overwhelming. So I would say, you know, like, I found this one, I liked it. So then I researched and it was approved and I felt comfortable using it. Because even this one, sometimes these wipes, I don't know if all of you have noticed, but not that any of us have experienced this, but they smell like tequila. I know we shouldn't know what tequila smells like, but I thought this smells like tequila. And I want to douse everything with the youth coming over, and they sit in it, and I thought they're going to go home smelling like booze.
Not good. Huh?
Yeah, so I thought this was a better option for my purposes.
Okay, then are we supposed to be sanitizing the carpet and the floors? I mean, Craig's
I'm just bringing it up in case somebody...
Well, in case you're spraying the chair.
You're spraying the chair, you're spraying the carpet at the same time. You know, maybe
okay.
You know, overspraying in a way, but you might be hitting the carpet. So somebody might raise up, well, are we possibly damaging the carpet? So I'm just bringing that up as a question that might be asked.
Yeah, so in that case, and I think that's a really good question. The question Janet brought forward is, you do really need to spend the time considering your space and what you'll be using, and that can inform what types of sanitizers are appropriate for you. I would say anytime using cloth or fabric, this is going to be my go-to. If it is more of like these chairs or different things, I might lean into a bleach water solution, which is obviously cheaper and really easy to make. But this bottle, I think, is $4.99, and they have large refill gallons available.
Yeah, one that I have too, I have the Odoban. Have you seen these? This is, I use this on all my couches and fabric, and it's the same type of thing. And yeah, it smells really good.
Is that from Menards?
And you can use it in laundry too.
Oh,
yeah, it's fabric and air freshener, and it's a multi-purpose cleaner, and it kills 99.99% of germs. But yeah, same thing. You get it at Sam's, Home Depot, probably Menards, and so like if this is just another alternative, and it comes in lavender too.
Oh.
But yeah, I just walk around every day, and I do my couches almost daily. I have 4 animals and kids, and I just walk around and just kind of spray everything. And it's very inexpensive. It's like you get a gallon for $8, and then you know, it dilutes, and you fill your bottles. And
yeah, they have a lot more options available now because of the demand. So again, and just if you find one you like, make sure you check the EPA site. We can share the link with you. The list is huge, but you can search options so that you feel comfortable in the product you're using. Yeah. Any other questions? But again, we can share information out via email and send they have little videos that the CDC has put out and stuff as well that's helpful. But I think these are just good basics for everyone. Again, in food service, this is, you know, how we have to exist every single day. The mask component is new, but in terms of really having to think about public health, you know, every time I touch an eye or see a kid touch an eye and go to a cutting board, I think that is virus spread. So being able to really diligently wash our hands and be mindful of those high touch surfaces, the more you are informed, the better habits you have, you can feel more comfortable leading groups. I think small gatherings.
Question. I think you did a great job.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.